Hey friend, welcome to the Self Care Isn't Selfish podcast. I'm your host, Emily Nichols. As a Whole30 certified coach, wife, busy working boy mom, and your self-care guru, I'm here to help you start putting yourself first without the guilt. Each week you'll hear motivating and practical tips on how you can create a habit of self-care through interviews with my amazing guests or quick solo episodes with me. After each episode, you'll walk away with an action plan and feel empowered to implement what you have learned into your life. So, grab a cup of coffee, glass of wine, or your favorite sparkling water, and let's do this. You're listening to episode 57 of the Self Care Isn't Selfish podcast. This is a very special self-care quickie with you because it's my 1-year podcast anniversary. Woo! I feel like I should have like noisemakers and confetti going, but I'm just sitting in my closet all on my own. But I know you're out there and I can feel you, and I hope you're smiling, and I'm sending you a virtual hug because I've had over 13,000 downloads of my show in over a year, and people, gosh, the feedback I get from you all, it makes my heart sing. And this show has been the biggest blessing in my life. And I can't thank you enough for listening. And know there is so much more coming before the end of 2020. I want to help you make self-care a priority in your life and make you crave your self-care routine every day in order to feel your best. So if you haven't, go ahead and click the show notes so you can join my free Facebook community so we can continue the conversation over there. Just talk about real life and connect over funny memes and all the things that are going on in the world. I'd love to see you over there. But for today's quickie episode, since it is super duper special with it being our 1-year anniversary of the Self Care Isn't Selfish podcast, I am sharing my top 5 things I have learned from hosting this podcast over the past year. So let's get into it. Number 1, getting to know people and asking people questions about themselves can be one of the biggest blessings in your life. This is one of the reasons I started the podcast. You know, I was Whole30 coaching. I was doing it virtually, and I would have these groups, and I would have guest speakers come, and I would interview them, and it would just light me up to be able to hear other people's stories and ask them questions about themselves, and them sharing advice that in turn will inspire someone else listening. It was just amazing. And that was one of the first, seeds planted into me starting this podcast. But you don't have to host a podcast in order to get to know people. Everyone's favorite subject is themselves, right? And we love to talk about ourselves, right? I mean, I'm talking about my 5 biggest takeaways from my show. But one of the biggest things is getting to know other people and asking them questions about themselves can really lead to more meaningful conversations and make other people feel seen and heard, and just really strengthen your relationships with those around you. So I want you to try an experiment. Next time you're having a conversation with somebody, ask them questions about themselves instead of just digging into maybe shared experiences or, what's on your mind. There's a time and place for all of that. And, you can go back and forth and banter in your own conversation, but the conversation should never just be all about you. So ask questions, listen, and get to know other people. I guarantee you it'll be not only the biggest blessing in your life, but whomever you're sharing that conversation with. Number 2, accessibility and diversity matters. With the year 2020 and everything that's been going on, accessibility in regards to self-care. You may not have been able to go out and do some of your normal self-care routines, and you had to figure out how to do that at home. But also, I know some things are maybe not as accessible to some people. You may not be able to go to a workout class, or you may not be able to afford a personal development book, or do this or do that. And moving forward, and I'm really even more so aware of this, accessibility is important, and being able to provide a very varying different resources to people is really important to me, so everyone is able to access my self-care tips as the expert and coach to you. diversity matters as well. The whole month of July, I had some amazing, amazing experts on the show talking about all different areas of diversity and inclusion, and just doing some own self-evaluation myself. I wasn't providing enough diversity on my show. So moving forward, there will be a lot more different folks coming on the show to share their perspectives, because I don't want it to all be tunnel visioned into my experience in the world. Does that make sense? I hope it does. So diversity is important, like what Tenoria said in our episode. She had mentioned, inviting someone to your table that doesn't look like you. Well, that's what I'll be continuing doing on the podcast, is inviting people onto the show that don't look like me. My third biggest takeaway of hosting the show over the past year is be willing to adapt. Okay, this can apply to a few different areas of your life, but looking back on early episodes, I feel like, the overarching theme of the show has always been about self-care and that it's not selfish. But I feel like I've adapted as our world has adapted, and as I've grown in my own self-care journey. I want to share my story. So when it comes to your own wellness or self-care journey, you have to be willing to adapt. You are going to go through different seasons of your life, and things aren't going to work the way you want them to anymore. It's just not going to feel right. So change it up. Adapt. Make it work for you. That is true in life and even in business as well. With owning my own coaching services, you'll notice over the next couple of months, as I'm launching some new services, the way I'm branding things is changing. The way I'm offering different services is changing based on my audience's feedback. So I'm adapting both personally and professionally, depending on the seasons of life that I'm going through and what I know is best going to serve me and best serve you, my audience. My fourth takeaway is to do it scared. I've shared with you all this before. I waited a whole year before I launched this podcast. I could have been 2 years in by now, not just a year, but timing is everything. And I was really scared to do it. But as my friend Sarah Hawk from the Facing Fear podcast, that's what her show is all about, is facing your fears and watching the snowball effect from that, and how it's made so many positive changes in my life and has allowed me to try other hard things. I took my personal training exam and certification at the spring this year, and I was so scared to do that. I mean, studying leading up to it, and of course that it kept getting rescheduled and stuff due to COVID. And I did it scared, and I did it anyways. I launched this podcast and I did it anyways. I'm launching new opportunities for you to make self-care a priority from my 3-tier coaching system. I'm making it possible, although I'm scared to put it out there in the world. When you do hard things, it makes it easier to do other hard things in your life. So try it out, do it scared, and be prepared to see the positive side effects from that. And lastly, the fifth thing I've learned the most from this show, and I might even get choked up talking about this, is something I've not been really open and honest with you all about. It's my own confidence in myself. I am my own worst critic when it comes to being an entrepreneur, when it comes to being a mom, but mostly when it comes to my own body confidence. And you're like, Emily, you're a personal trainer, group fitness instructor, Whole30 coach. You're preaching all about self-care. Yeah, I do all this and I feel good, but I'm still so critical of myself. And that is because that is something that has always been on my brain and on my heart. And it's not going to change overnight to switch that switch off. My husband says to me all the time, I'll be being really down and hard on myself. And he'll be like, babe, you need to listen to your own show. Cut it out. Listen to your own show and what you're putting out there. And I want to be open and honest and super authentic with you all. I am really hard on myself, and especially when it comes to my own body confidence. And that's something I'm going to be working on and exploring a little bit more just through bringing on guests. I haven't really had too many people on talking about body confidence, if you look back over the past year. And it's because it's something I didn't want to face on my own. Okay. It's just something I didn't want to face on my own. One of the things I am most critical about myself is my body. And I want to change that moving forward, because we're all beautiful no matter what shape or size. But I need to find a way to flip that switch in my head. And like my husband said, listen to my own dang advice moving forward. So that's something I'm going to be working on. And I just wanted to be open and honest and truly authentic with you about that, because I know I'm not the only woman that feels this way. but I want to change that moving forward. So, cheers to 1 year of the Self Care Isn't Selfish podcast. Like I said, I have some amazing things coming down the pipeline for you through the end of 2020 and into the new year. I really feel like 2021 has to be a better year, right? I hope you take these takeaways that I've given you today of what I've learned from my show and apply it to your own life and really take the heart that self-care isn't selfish. And truly, this show has been the biggest blessing of this past year. It really, truly has. And grateful to you all doesn't even begin to describe how blessed I am to have you listening to this show. And I hope actually taking action on what we're talking about each week on this show, because I put my true heart into everything that we put out on the show. Every guest just lights me up, and I can't believe that I get to do this and put this out here for you all. So thank you for listening. Cheers to 1 year of the Self Care Isn't Selfish podcast, and cheers to many more. Love you all.